Hey everybody, it's Josh. I want to talk today about another stumbling block for those who are trying to pursue a close and intimate relationship with the God of the universe, Jesus Christ. I hear my geese in the background as soon as I started. I want to talk today about the hardest thing for me, aside from setting aside my pride, but it also ties in with that. It is to love our enemies. Now, this is something for me, more so for other people I've met, but for me, there's been very few people I've ever considered my enemies. But the people I did consider my enemies, or I still do, those are people who have hurt the loved ones in my life so completely that it left a lasting mark upon them, that it scarred them for their entire life and altered the course of their life. Possibly altered the fact that they will ever even accept Jesus Christ, because their life took a spiral when the horrible things that they did to them came to fruition. I used to think of myself as a good person. I used to think that I loved just about everyone, but there were those people that I hated, those people I despised. And these people were the people who came at me and came at my loved ones, often for no reason. Since I began giving my life completely to the Lord, since I've devoted myself completely, and I say completely, but I really mean attempting to give my life completely, because I have to be completely honest, I'm a human just like everyone else, and there's no way I can live up to that standard. But I will spend the rest of my life trying. I will spend every day of my life trying to live up to what the Lord expects of me. Because He showed me mercy in my most vulnerable time. He showed me love when the entire world rejected me. When I was isolated and alone, even within a group of people. I felt like my life should not go on. I did not want it to. I thought the only reason it's going on is because there's some cosmic joke on me and people are having fun at my expense, because I am cursed. And meeting so many since I've been saved, as bad as I thought my life was, and as bad as many people thought my life were, I hear so many saying, I am so sorry. You just got a bad deal in life. I'm so sorry for all this that happened to you. Such a good person, such a bad result. It just proves there is no God, right? I go on in life, and I see that there are people that have it so much worse than me. And I see that they've accepted God a long time ago. Maybe they are completely immobile. Maybe they're paraplegics. Maybe they have some condition where they only have a few weeks, months, days, who knows, to live. And here I am bitching and moaning about the pain in my life, the suffering in my life. And yeah, I get it. It's too much for most to handle. But when you understand, you can just give your life to the Lord, because that is exactly and the only thing that will ever make you fulfilled, give you meaning, give you true hope. You will think you found these things in others. other relationships, money, fame, power, who knows? You'll think you have found them. Even drugs and alcohol make you feel like this. Oh, I know it's rough in life, but I can just come home and drink myself stupid and I feel great. When I was young and lost in life, when you're 19 and lost, everything seems bleak. I thought that drugs and alcohol were absolutely fantastic. I didn't understand why so many had such problems with them. For me, it was an escape. It was a crutch. It became an identity. I was so fortunate, and so many of my friends were not so fortunate, to never become addicted to most of these things. I understand that grip that these drugs and alcohol have on your life, that gambling has on your life, that lust has on your life. I understand it. That's my entire point of what I'm trying to tell you every single day, as much as I can, as much as you will listen. The things of this world will claw at you, will devour you once you submit to them. When we become engaged in a sinful life, and I'll use the obvious ones, but it works with every kind of sin. Let's say you become reliant upon alcohol. You are signing a deal with the devil, whether you understand it or not. I've done videos on this before, but I want to express to you that the devil is always in the details. The devil is in the details because when you sign that deal, you're signing the deal under the condition, under the thought that this will help me escape. And all you have to do is sign on that dotted line, pick up that bottle, and bam, your problems are gone. At least for the evening, or at least for as long as it'll last, until you sleep it off. Then you wake up and you do it again. What you don't read in the details where the devil lives is that you won't just be able to drink like you used to. Maybe a couple shots of whiskey, become a half a bottle of whiskey, become a whole bottle of whiskey, become 2-3 bottles of whiskey. Become so much and do so little. And yet you still don't realize that you've signed your life away, or you don't care, because that's the only solution that you found. An addict of any kind is someone who is searching for truth and has been so hurt that they have to turn to this. But then they look at the solution of becoming a Christian, giving their life to God. And they say, man, that sounds good in theory. I've seen so many who say it's transformed their life, but they're probably lying. I don't see how believing in some imaginary thing, some unknown, unseen God, can have any impact on my life. I've never seen any evidence of this. Well, Jesus says, seek and ye shall find. He does not mean just to look around. Where's God? I don't see him. Seeking means going deep, means genuinely giving him a chance, means that, in my case especially, I, for the first time, was genuine. I wanted to give my life to God, and I still did not believe. I thought there's maybe a 0.0001% chance of God ever intervening in my life. But that 0.0001% chance was still better than winning the lottery, was still better than any chance that I had for happiness, any chance that I had for meaning. And I took it. And I meant what I said when I said, Lord, if you show me a way out of this hell, I will give you my life. Is that the situation that you're in? If you're suffering? If God would take away the anxiety, the fear, the guilt, and the shame, the constant grief and agony, would you give your life to him? Is that something you would truly commit to? Or would you just say, thanks, God, I appreciate it? Because we see over and over, especially the New Testament or the Old Testament, we see like the book of Judges. The book of Judges was Israel being torn apart. Israel would be in hard times and cry out to God, and God would send a judge, some broken person, to help them, to lead them to salvation. And then they would go upon great times. And during those great times, they would forget all about God. They would forget everything that God said to them, everything God did for them. All he did to save them from the misery. And they would say, well, I don't really think it was God who did that, because it was this person. It was this. I believe in things I can see only. Do you? Do you believe that love exists? I give this example over and over because God is love. If you believe that love exists, where's your proof? You can't see it. You have evidence for it, indirect evidence, but yet it's still there. This is why I'm talking about the stumbling blocks for believing in Jesus Christ. And this one, and if I had a problem with it, so many others I know would absolutely just be, nope, not doing that. And that is to love your enemies. Luke 6:30. God says, but love your enemies. Do good to them and lend to them, expecting nothing in return. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked? Why is that? We ask that, but then we don't question why God would save us, because we think that we're such good people. We're so great. We're so worthy, right? Even if we don't think we're worthy, we think that we're good. At least we're not monsters. But God is kind to the monsters. God is merciful to the wicked, because they are just as blind as you were. And you, while you might not have been as wicked as a Charles Manson or a Ted Bundy or some of the monsters that you conjure up in your head when you're thinking of the worst people, you were wicked. You were corrupt to the core. And until you can accept that, then your pride is standing in your way. Your pride will always be a stumbling block all along, until you can deny yourself. One of the core tenets of being a Christian is to deny yourself. And pick up the cross daily. Take up the things that you don't want to do in life, but God sets before you anyway. My geese. I love those little guys. God sets before you all of these trials and tribulations. And when you can't set aside your pride, do the first step of denying yourself, you're not going to take up that cross. You're not going to submit your life to him because you are still living for your glory. You are still living for your satisfaction. You are still living the life that you were living, expecting different results, virtue signaling, cosplaying as a Christian. You're not tricking anyone but yourself. Maybe some people around you, maybe. I can tell you that true Christians know others by their fruit. We know who the hypocrites are, and we're all got a little bit of hypocrite in us. We've all got that hypocritical side, comes along with our pride, comes along with wanting to be accepted. We all have these dark things within us, but you will never, ever trick God. You will see the ravenous wolves when your eyes are open, coming to you in sheep's clothing. You will. I've encountered them many times. And while many of them I pray for, I see they are pretending to be such holy people and leading people astray and are lost themselves. Yet they can get famous, or they can be heard by saying they have some direct voice or direct line to God. They have this direct communication with God that allows them to be someone special. Not going to lie to you, that's crossed my mind many times in the very beginning of my salvation, in the very beginning of my spiritual journey. I thought I was someone special. I went from wanting my life to end, from worthless, to thinking I had some exclusive line to God. That pride will eat you alive. It is the root of all sin. King Solomon, who suffered from the pride, though he had great wisdom, he suffered from the pride. He said, pride cometh before the fall. And it absolutely does. Everything hinges. All of your sinful life hinges on your pride. And denying yourself is the only way to get around it. And you still will have the residue of your pride within you. When I was saved, I thought, people will listen to me. It's obvious I've talked to God, and that I am someone special now because God chose me. But no. Just like the Apostle Paul said when he got a thorn in his side, he went through every amount of suffering imaginable. Flogged 4 times, shipwrecked 3 times, bitten by a serpent, stoned and left for dead. You name it, he went through it. People trying to murder him in every city he went to. And yet, the only thing he complained about was a thorn in his side. Now, it might translate to something other than a thorn, most likely it does. I think the most reasonable thing was some kind of demonic spear tip in his side. But this was an agony for Paul. And he said it kept him from becoming conceited. And for me, that is exactly the same with my back pain. God left this pain that goes from the bottom of my spine, really all the way up my spine, but the main pain is in the bottom of my spine, around my tailbone, all the way down to my big toe in my right leg. Throbbing all the time. Right now, throbbing. That's why you see me in my videos moving back and forth. I can't stand still. I apologize for that. That is the thorn in my side. And why is it there? Because if God would have healed all of my pain, if God would have completely taken me from the life that led me to him, the one that made me desperate for him, how easily would I have rejected him? How easily would I have said, no, I am someone holy. God took away my pain. God brought me from the darkest depths of hell. So I am to be heard. Living life for my glory, not for God's. And so, just like the Apostle Paul, I am kept with this pain so I do not become conceited. Because nobody wants to think they're going to become like that. Nobody does. I certainly didn't. But I know what happens. I know what happens to a preacher. Maybe has a tiny little church, but they are a magnificent speaker, an orator. And they go and they spread the gospel with such beauty. And it spreads far and wide, and people start packing in that little church, and the church grows and it grows and it grows, and now it's a mega church. And now, instead of this humble preacher whose life may have been transformed by God and led him to start preaching in the first place, this man has become a worshiper of false idols. He worships his fame. He worships his wealth that comes from preaching the gospel. And true, he may be preaching the same gospel that we are supposed to preach. But what's in your heart matters much more than how you speak. What's in your heart matters much more than even the actions you take. The things that you do need to reflect what God has given you. And when they stop doing that, we are all victim of the corruption. We are all victims of the seductions of Satan. Back to those stumbling blocks, right? So your pride is there keeping you from giving your life completely to God. Your pride saying, I'm not going to humble myself because I don't need to be humbled. I know what's right and what's wrong. I know what's good and what's bad. I know that God has never, ever shown me any evidence of working in my life. And even if he has, it might have been a delusion. Maybe it was my own power. Maybe I am God. Because the greatest sin, the absolute original sin, is thinking you can create God in your image. Ties in with that pride. But to humble yourself enough to love your enemies. Think about that. You know, King David in the great Psalm 23, he says, God prepares a table before my enemies, humbling him. Loving our enemies requires humbling ourselves, requires pushing aside our pride. King David, to understand Psalm 23, the most beautiful poetry ever written, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside still pasture. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Go and read Psalm 22. The psalm that Jesus Christ quoted when he was dying on the cross, when he was suffering at his most. He said, my Lord, why have you forsaken me? All selfish. And people wonder if Jesus was God, why would he say that? There's many theories. My theory is Jesus Christ was in the midst of suffering for our sins. Perhaps this was King David's sins. King David's sin of not trusting in God in Psalm 22, where he was pierced for his transgressions. And while he was suffering and paying the penalty for King David's sins, because he retroactively and proactively paid the price for everyone's sins, he cried out in the way his ancestor cried out, "Lord, why have you forsaken me?" And when we think things like this, we cannot trust in God. But we can lament. And we lament and we cry out. And God understands this pain. God understands when you're going through this suffering and you have turned astray from him, that this is human nature. And that you can always turn back to him and he will be there to accept you. But humbling yourself enough to love your enemies? Love your enemies and be so loving to them, be so kind to them. What is that all about? I had probably the person I hate the most reach out to me within the last week, actually. And then right after Christmas time, I had another person reach out to me who I didn't like necessarily, but this time they were making up a bunch of lies about me, and really making up a bunch of lies about my wife. Because why? They were hurt. They were hurt and they were lashing out. Because as I've said, when you are trapped in hell, when you are burning there in the depths, the only thing you care about is having some company. It's pulling as many people down to burn alongside of you as you can. Because you have told yourself, you have been told by the devil, and you have believed it, that this is heaven. And when you see the flames licking up over your face, you're like, what? But you've conditioned yourself to think that this hell is heaven. And so you say, maybe if I bring others in. Maybe if I bring others in, and you're in that mindset of agony, and you want to pull others into that mindset of agony, and you make the standard the agony and the suffering for everyone around you. And then you say, now I am the happiest. Now I am the one who brought this agony on these people. I have this power. And yes, it is a power trip for them. It is a pride thing. They would never, ever submit to God when they know they are God themselves. They've told themselves this. They can't bring themselves to ever even consider doing something as selfless as loving your enemy. And it has to be a selfless act to be love. So this other person that reached out to me truly was maybe the only true enemy I had in life. Hurt my family so horribly back in the 90s, I believe it was. I had obviously moved on from it. I'm very far set aside from this. But they had told me they had heard about my salvation, about the change in my life. And they asked for forgiveness for what they did. They said they were lost. They said they were drug addicted. And they said that something amazing had happened to them as well. And while I said, that is amazing news to hear, I am so glad to hear that you have found peace in your life, that you have found the Lord in your life. And I am so glad to hear that you are asking for forgiveness. And absolutely, I forgive you. And I want nothing but the best for you. I really do. But I told them, while I do love and forgive you, I cannot have you in my life right now. And there's a reason for this. I wanted to reach out to them. I wanted to accept them into my life, but I had to think of the other people that I loved in my life and what that would do to them. These people who were still being hurt, whose lives were so affected by this person. And I said, it's better if we just go our separate ways. But I am so happy to hear that you've changed your life. And really, even saying that, even saying I can't have you in my life, I can't be in communication with you because that would hurt the people I love the most in life, that hurt me. Someone I despised. And I mean, I despised so much that I used to daydream about beating this person to death with my fist. That is how much I despise this person. And I've never hated anyone as much as I hated this guy. But I had to assess the situation. And while I did accept his apology and absolutely forgive him and absolutely do love him now, I had to say I have a priority of the people I love the most in life. And it would be basically lying to them, not telling them about this person reaching out to me. And many of them who have been affected by this person would not understand. They are not Christians. They do not have that forgiveness in their heart, that love in their heart. I'm trying to lead them to that place, but this certainly would not help. And yet, I felt a little guilt about saying, I love you and I forgive you, but I cannot have you in my life. It's not because of me, it is because of the people I love. And I felt this seems even unreasonable for me. And then I'm like, who have I become? That this is even crossing my mind. That I'm even thinking this about this person. I would have told this person to go F themselves. I would have told this person to go get killed in the most horrible way. And now I'm telling them I'm so sorry that I cannot be in communication with you. And that's when I realized just how powerful God's love is. Because while this person was a monster, absolutely, you must always put yourselves in their shoes. They were neglected in life. They were abused in life. They signed that deal with the devil to escape their suffering, or just maybe in a time of weakness, and became an addict. And it brought them straight to hell. And I get it. I understand. It doesn't make any sense, does it? That radical love, that radical forgiveness, it doesn't make sense to most rational people. Because we want vengeance, we want justice, we want no mercy. And yet, when we were crying out to God, when we didn't deserve it, God gave us mercy. God showed us that amazing grace, that saved a wretch like you and me. I just want to tell you that I know how hard that stumbling block is of loving your enemies. There's so much hate in this world. There's so much vengeance. Why would you want to see these awful people? These people who are committing acts of great evil. Like all of the unborn who are being slaughtered. I don't hate the women who choose to do this, but I definitely hated the people doing it. And as I was walking here today, I prayed for them. Not that they would see some kind of justice, because I know God is just. I prayed that they would see salvation. They would see what they're doing is wrong. These people starting wars, these people committing all kinds of acts of horrible violence. I pray they see what they're doing is wrong, and they find that radical love and that radical forgiveness and that radical peace in their life. All right, everyone, I better get going. I love you guys so much. Let me know in the comments, has this been a stumbling block for you, loving your enemies, praying for your enemies, or have you just ignored it altogether? Because I'll tell you what, in the very beginning I did. I ignored this completely. I was like, well, it's easy for me because I don't have a lot of enemies. There's people I don't like, but I just don't think about them. Now I think about them all the time. And I think about helping lead them to the light instead of finding vengeance upon them. I love you guys so much. God bless.